Hi guys, we have just seen the running orders for the semi-finals be revealed, and me and Jess here are going to discuss the running orders for both semi-finals. So for those who have not seen them, these are the two semi-final running orders, and before you ask, I am doing this without any prompts on my screen. I'm going to do it by memory. So, semi-final one. Go on.
Right, let me check this.
Okay, semi-final one is Cyprus, Serbia, Lithuania, Ireland. Then we have our first automatic qualifier in the UK. Then we have Ukraine, Poland, Croatia, Iceland. Then we go to Germany, our second automatic qualifier. Slovenia, Finland, Moldova. Then it's Sweden, our final automatic qualifier. Azerbaijan, Australia, Portugal, and closing is Luxembourg. Over to semi-final 2 now. We have Malta opening, and then Albania, Greece, Switzerland, Czechia. Then our first automatic qualifier in that semi-final is France. Then we go to Austria, Denmark, Armenia, Latvia. Then our second one is Spain. And then in slot 10, it is San Marino. Then we go to Georgia, Belgium, and then Estonia. Our final automatic qualifier is Italy, and then rounding us off, we have Israel, Norway, and closing off semi-final 2 is the Netherlands.
I mean, that is very impressive, but how do we know you weren't looking at it on a screen?
I know, I was thinking that. I mean, surely the mannerisms of me counting, unless you think I'm a really good actor, it might be the case. But I mean, to be fair, they saw me do the grand final running order back in live in Liverpool, so I'd like to think people can think I can do it. So, Jess, before we get into sort of the details of this both running orders, overall thoughts on them? I know it's hard because we don't know stagings, but like maybe based on where your favorites are, or just overall vibe you get from the flow. What are your thoughts on these running orders?
I mean, I think based on the songs themselves, the genres, the styles, I think they've done the best they can. Because, for example, the first half of Semi 1 is loaded with so many bops and like pop radio friendly songs, and you know that must have been a nightmare to try and organize. So I think, all things considered, I think they've done a good job overall. But when you kind of really delve into it and start nitpicking, you notice certain little things that you think that doesn't really quite make sense, or why have they done that. So as a whole, I would say that I'm quite happy. We've got a strong opener and closer. We almost had San Marino 11-11 in 11th.
Don't get me started.
I know. But not a bad running order, I would say, for both semis.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, it's one of those where everyone does their running order predictions every year, and it was harder this year because we had to factor in automatic qualifiers, and everyone gets it wrong. But we still look at the running order and go, yeah, that makes sense. It's close enough. It's one of those. Semi-final 1, I think, actually flows a bit nicer than semi-final 2. I sort of listen to it and it's like, yeah, I can understand where they're going for here. Semi-final 2, it feels, the first half in particular feels a little bit random, like they just plucked the countries out of a hat and put them in order. Semi-final, and then the second half, it's a little bit heavy near the end. It's sort of like you've got Israel, but then you've got Norway, Estonia, and Netherlands around it. Obviously, you got Italy factoring in as well, but like just taking into account the semi-final songs, it's a bit heavy in terms of the chaos. It's maybe Israel's in there to sort of balance it out a bit. I don't know, but I think semi-final one's better. But I'm sure once staging kicks in and all that stuff, it'll be better. And also, I do think the automatic qualifiers have been put in nice spots for evening out certain tropes that maybe were in semi-finals. For example, the first half of semi-final 2 was pretty much all females apart from Switzerland, so they were naturally going to put in France in that first half. Even though I didn't actually predict that, I only thought about that in hindsight. That's a me thing. So let's go on to semi-final 1, in particular the opener and closer. You can discuss these in either order, Jess. But opening the show, we have Cyprus, and closing the show on their return to the contest after many years, we have Luxembourg. So 2 female bops opening and closing the show. What are your thoughts on these 2?
In my opinion, it's the perfect opener and closer, in my opinion, because, well, I mean, in the first half of the semi-final, you have a lot of choice to open the show.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of bops that could have done it, but I think Cyprus was one of like the better ones to open. I also predicted maybe Poland could be a good opener for the semi-final.
That was my prediction for it, Poland, yeah.
But I think Cyprus is really going to get the crowd going. It's very up-tempo. But then we go straight to Serbia in second.
Oh my gosh,
which
Serbia,
is like such a going down in the mood and the tempo, which is very strange to me. But Cyprus, perfect opener. And in terms of the second half, I feel like Luxembourg was the obvious choice to close, because the other songs we have are either like kind of ballads in the sense of Azerbaijan and Portugal, or it's a more kind of slower pace song like Moldova, for example, or Slovenia. And so really, if you want to kind of go out with a big, huge like performance that everyone's going to remember, and something that's catchy and fun and upbeat, Luxembourg is really the only choice.
Yeah, I'm in agreement there. Cyprus, this is the first time they are opening a semi-final since 2019. It's the first time they're opening a show since 2021. They like to open with Cyprus in shows quite a bit, I would say. It's a very solid opener. It was one that many people predicted. Maybe with Silia being 17, they're making sure that she can perform before her bedtime. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. But yeah, very solid. Should be a lot of fun. I don't think this necessarily means that they have grand staging, but they'll probably have solid enough staging. And then when it comes to Luxembourg closing, I'm not even going to pretend I know when the last time they closed a show is. But if they have ever, but for me it was the only choice, because you look at, there were 3 other like up tempo songs in that second half. It was Iceland, Australia, and Finland. If in the interest of fairness, you can have Australia and Finland because they closed the semi-finals last time. And the interest of having a good song, sorry, Iceland, you can have Iceland in the final spot. I mean, they're opening the half, put it that way, Jess. But we might talk about Iceland a bit later. But Luxembourg seemed like a fun, nice choice to close, which is sometimes what you need. You don't necessarily need like a potential winner closing at half. And yeah, Luxembourg, it's a nice welcome back present as well, which I'm not sure is I'm not saying is the only reason why they put them there. It's a suitable closer as well, and it should be a lot of fun on stage. The revamp for that is coming out on Friday, I believe. It's definitely coming out this week. Don't know when this is going out as a video, so if the revamp's already out by the time this happens, then sorry, but yeah, it's coming out on Friday, so hopefully that'll be improved. And if they bring similar to what they brought in the Luxembourg national final, maybe just elevate it a bit, then they're in with a good shout. I think out of all the countries in semi-final 1, Luxembourg's stock in potentially qualifying has been upped the most by their running order position. Going over to semi-final 2, the opener I would say is definitely more surprising. No, despite it being a girl bop, I don't think many people had Malta opening, and the closer, meanwhile, was probably the most predictable one, even though I didn't predict it for some reason, in the Netherlands. So, Malta and Netherlands are your opener and closer for semi-final 2. Jess, what are your thoughts on them?
Well, starting with the closer, for me, I would have assumed the Netherlands could be a bit too like crazy to close the show, if that makes sense, because it is maybe more, I want to say like a wacky entry, but in a good way. And having a song like that to close the show, I wouldn't have naturally gone for that song to close. I would have potentially gone for maybe Norway, potentially, or
yeah, because that's very tame, Norway. That's well,
I mean, it would have been a memorable closer,
yeah, of course,
and like a strong up-tempo song to round off the semi. But in terms of Malta opening, I personally thought either Denmark or Austria would open the semi-final.
Yeah,
and I'm glad they didn't, because they're some of my favourites. So thank goodness. But I mean, you know, in a similar vein to Cyprus, Malta's girl bop, it's up-tempo. You know she's going to have a good choreography on stage, so there's going to be something visual to remember it. The song is catchy itself, so from that perspective, it makes sense. But I think it would have made more sense to have a song like Austria or possibly Denmark, because I feel like they were a good opener to DMGP. Could have worked for Eurovision as well, maybe. But overall, not too surprised, and I think they're decent openers and closers.
Yeah, I think from a song perspective, they're both decent openers and closers. I didn't personally have Netherlands predicted. I actually predicted Estonia to close the semi-final. I thought they'd be a nice one to
Even more
close.
crazy.
Yeah, well, I didn't factor in crazy because Carrier closed last year at semi-final one, so I was like, that won't factor in. In hindsight, Netherlands is, it's ridiculously popular this year, and also a theory that someone online, another YouTuber, came up with, which actually makes a lot of sense because you start the voting from the beginning this time with song one onwards. They want to try and keep people around until the end, and having the most popular song in terms of YouTube views anyway be at the end makes perfect sense for why they're doing it. Also, Netherlands is going to have very wacky, crazy staging.
Yeah,
I would imagine. So, which it'd be interesting to see how quickly they can transition from Norway's staging, which we probably can guess is similar to MGP, to whatever Netherlands are going to produce. That'll be fascinating to see. As for Malta opening, as I said, it's a girl bops, so we should have seen it coming, but no one saw Malta opening for weird reasons. I thought Austria was dead certain going to open the semi-final. Denmark opened last time, so I never really considered them.
I
but
forgot about that.
Yeah, again, maybe this is one where Malta's stock increases in terms of qualification chances, because at the end of the day, opening the show with a girl bop like that, maybe that will help them. Sarah Benici does have good what's it called? I was going to say dance ability. I don't know why I started with Q, but I'm yet to see her vocal quality. Let's see, I think, in the pre-parties with that. But yeah, this doesn't hurt Malta. I think this is arguably the best spot they could have got, either that or later on in the first half. So Jess, I do have a question for you, because one thing that's fascinating for me with these openers and closers is that I would argue only one of them is a guaranteed qualifier, which is very rare for the semi-finals. And I would say Netherlands is guaranteed. The other three I'm not sure on. Since eons, I couldn't even tell you the last time, there has been minimum one opener or closer fail to qualify for the final. If that tradition continues and you could only pick one of them not to qualify, which one would you say is most likely?
Gosh, it pains me to say this, but I think Malta could be missing out on the final for another year, because Netherlands 100% qualifying because it's televote only. Luxembourg has a very strong song, and I think their song is stronger than Malta's song. And especially with the revamp coming, if it's going to be even stronger, I think they have a good chance to qualify with televote only. Cyprus, again, I think the song is stronger than the Maltese song. So I'm saying Malta, but knowing my luck, I'm probably going to be proven wrong.
Well done, Malta. You're going to qualify into the final now. I actually agree, though. I think out of the four, Malta's the least likely to qualify. I'm not dead certain on Luxembourg and Cyprus either. If you want to know my predictions, tune into later podcasts where I'm sure we'll be doing predictions for semi-final 1 and 2. But I feel they're more likely to qualify than Malta, which I'd sort of written off completely before the running order, and I guess they have a bit more of a chance now. Put it that way. So going on from opener and closer, before we go on to maybe more general ones and freeform, let's touch upon the slot of death, slot 2, which in the semi-final 1 goes to Serbia, and not for the first time in semi-final 2, it goes to Albania. Out of the two, Jess, what are your thoughts on Serbia and Albania? Do you reckon, because last year obviously slot 2 curse was broken with Armenia, so it's not a complete death sentence. Will either of these break that curse as well?
If anyone's going to break it, it's going to be Serbia, in my opinion, because really that's like the only proper ballad in the first half of that semi-final. And there's not, apart from maybe Azerbaijan and Portugal in the second half.
I was thinking Ukraine in that first half, but it's it's a bit ballady,
But when you kind of look at all the other songs in that first half, including the automatic qualifier UK, they're all very up-tempo and upbeat to some extent. And Serbia is just a very stark contrast to that. And I think that that's going to work in her favour. But I think putting them second, the only kind of proper ballad second, seems a bit odd. I think it would have been better to have it a bit later on, in my opinion. But as for Albania, however, welcome home, Albania.
You spent far too long away from slot 2, Albania. You spent far too long.
I know.
What was that, 2 years? That's far too long. Come on, Albania.
Sadly, I don't think the Albanian song is strong enough. to qualify. And of course, coming after them in third and fourth place, you've got Greece and Switzerland that are big, memorable songs. And I think potentially they could overshadow Albania. So I think Albania staying in the semi, Serbia's qualifying.
I would have to agree. It's weird that Serbia's in slot 2, yet I have very little doubts it's qualifying. Like, I saw the national final staging. Even if they just replicate that, they should be fine. It's a beautiful song. And Serbia's got such a great qualifying record as well. Maybe they do just want to try and break that record a little bit more, just add a few more slot 2s actually qualifying. And yeah, for me, it stands out. I will say my only reservation with Serbia was just that it was kept a bit far away from Portugal, because there was a bit similar there. They could have done more if they tried, like 2 and 14. Like they're very far away, actually. And then in semi-final 2, for me, it was either going to be Albania or Czechia in slot 2 were my picks, and they went with Albania. Because of course they did, it's Albania. I think it's a bit warranted, sadly. I don't think the song is strong enough. I think it's quite weak. I can't see it escaping the semi-final, especially now it's in slot 2. But who knows? I mean, I was infamously wrong last year in the podcast, and Yana will tell you that for a fact. So maybe I'm wrong about Albania this year. We will see. And then just closing out, Jess, because we are not going to talk about all the slots here. If you were to give me, and maybe try and avoid openers, closers, and slot 2s, from each semi-final, if you could give me like the song that benefited the most from the running order in terms of qualification chances, and the one that benefited the least.
I mean, in terms of benefiting the most, I am actually tempted to go with Serbia. Even though they are in the depth slot, there are ballads surrounded by bops.
They are indeed,
potentially, that's going to help them. And then so maybe Serbia could be an option, or if I look at semi 2, I mean, possibly Latvia could benefit, because you've got Austria, Denmark, Armenia before them, which are very up-tempo.
Interesting, okay.
And then it goes on to Spain, which is a bop, San Marino, which is rock, Georgia, which is pop. So maybe then having a ballad in between that actually could help Dons. So I'm saying Serbia for semi 1, Latvia for semi 2.
And then for ones that maybe hurt the most?
Oh, hurt the most, I forgot about that.
You blocked out the negativity.
Yes. I mean, gosh, hurt the most. I mean, I'm wondering, possibly I'm going to say Iceland, because they're following Croatia, which is one of the big favourites. And then you've got Poland and Ukraine, another favourite. Up-tempos, lots of up-tempos in a row. And I think Iceland is the weakest of all of them. So potentially they may be a little bit hurt by that, I think. And also, I would say maybe either Greece or Switzerland.
Interesting.
Because
okay.
In that second semi, Greece and Switzerland are really the two songs that are like out of the box and a little bit daring and different, and they decided to put them back to back, which I'm not quite sure why they've done that. But then you've got your kind of generic pop dance tracks, Austria, Denmark in a row, and then a very up-tempo in a row with Armenia. But then the two out-of-the-box ones next to each other, could they cancel each other out?
Possibly. I don't think... I'm not going to say Greece or Switzerland, because even though it's weird they're back-to-back, I don't think they were ever going to be a doubt for qualifying unless, based on running order, they're two of the favourites to go straight through to that final. For the favourites, in terms of the best slots, I think, in the semi-final one, I would say Portugal, being second to last with that staging, making sure that they're in a memorable spot. And I am very biased because I love Portugal this year and want them to qualify for the final. I think they're in a great... they couldn't have asked for a better spot, in my opinion. And in semi-2, I actually think Austria's in a great spot, because you got France performing before it, which is a great song, but it's a ballad. And then you've got a more ballady style in Denmark as well. So Austria is going to stand out. And they're not next to any of the other hitters in Switzerland or Greece. In terms of the ones that I think have suffered the most, I would agree Iceland. It's performing after Croatia. I think you could just stop there for reasons why it's not in a good spot. I mean, it's not also... I don't think being up before Slovenia helps it either, with the likely extravagant staging Slovenia is going to have. And for semi-final 2, I almost said Latvia. Actually, I don't think they're in a great spot at all, because the chaos that comes after them will maybe make them a little bit more forgettable in their spot, even though it does stand out as a male ballad. But actually, my answer is probably Czechia, because even though they're not in slot 2, the songs around, they've got Greece and Switzerland before them, and France and Austria after them.
Yeah.
I don't see how they stand. No, I don't see how they stand out there. So they would be my answers there. But that is what we think of the running order. What do you guys think of the running order? Are your favourites in great spots? Are they in bad spots? Did the EBU piss you off by not putting San Marino in slot 11 as they did? We didn't even discuss that. Actually, that's the worst spot. Not putting San Marino in 11 and putting them in 10. How effing dare you, EBU? You had one job. He did that on purpose. They have one job. That yeah. If you're as annoyed as me on that, let me know in the comments. But yeah, any other running order thoughts? What are your thoughts on where the automatic qualifiers are performing? Opener, closer, slot 2, your favorite, whatever. Let us know down below. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on all socials, follow us on the Spotify, of course, follow us on the article, anywhere where you see the Vox name. Follow us. And yeah, and we will see you guys next time for whatever video we see fit in this rapidly coming to an end Eurovision 2024 season. We feel like we're in the end game now. I'd imagine pre-parties is what the main thing is going to be next. But yeah, we will see you guys next time. I hope you all take care. Bye.
Bye.